What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out the amazing Spider-Man 2 on 4K Blu-ray. Now let's go over a few tech specs. This movie was shot on 35mm. It's got a 4K DI. It's 142 minutes, so 2 hours and 22 minutes. PG-13, the aspect ratio is 239:1. So it will have black letterbox bars, and the audio is in Dolby Atmos. We are using, once again, the Sony 325 ES 4K projector. Shout out to Value Electronics for sending that over. This movie did come out in 2014. I'm going to throw on screen the Dolby Atmos Object Viewer. If you guys don't know what the Object Viewer is, I will leave a link in the video's description down below. This will show you all of the active speakers in this Atmos mix. Now, we are just kicking right off at the credits right now. This is the beginning titles with the flashing Marvel logo. And as far as the Dolby Atmos mix goes, this is a 100% legit mix. You can see here on screen that I've got all my channels are active here. There's a center back channel here which clicks on as well. These two little guys here are the wide channels. This purple rectangle is my screen. Center channel, left, right, top speakers, top left, top right, rear right height. That's the center back. These are my back channels, and these guys are my side channels. So I've got 9 lower channels, 4 height channels, and I've got 4 subwoofers. So 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And you can see by all the yellow objects, this is a dynamically active mix, and they will activate every single one of my speakers. So if you did have more than 9 speakers, every single one of them is going to become active at some point in time. You can see that all of these speakers are they just light up green when something's going on. This is like the first chapter, so that's not even like anything really crazy going on either. This is a good movie to demo. I haven't watched it in like forever. So this movie does have a 3D version, which was converted for 3D. And if you are a 3D fan, between the 4K and the 3D version, I would say the 3D version is nearly flawless looking. Well, I will say right off the bat, I've got this in bright cinema mode. And overall, this is a pretty bright image. Not the brightest. It's not, I wouldn't say it's Aquaman bright, but right now we're seeing the plane go down and the specular highlights are actually very bright. I want to say they seem to be running a little bit hot, but they do pop extremely well, especially in this particular scene with the outdoor sky. And you'll see like the little lights flashing, the light flashing through the windows. Now we've got some flames in the background, and that's very bright, although this movie was shot on film. So, I mean, unlike Aquaman, where everything's super bright and vivid, this one has a little bit of dullness to it. Still very colorful, but a little bit of dullness to it. And since it is shot on film, there is a pretty noticeable amount of film grain as well. I wouldn't say it's heavy like 300 or BVS, but the grain is definitely present there, and it does have a very different look than the newer Spider-Man movies. So, I mean, if you do like that organic film grain appearance, film-like appearance, this definitely has that. I feel like the film grain kind of makes it feel more like it's realistic rather than being so clean and digital like on the newer Spider-Man movies where everything is so clean you can see the digital effects on Spider-Man's costume. Here, the amount of detail is so good you can see the folds in his suit. Unlike Tom Holland's Spider-Man where everything is all digitally clean, the man has 0 folds in his suit. I believe they took out all of those folds and like digitally replaced his costume for the newer Spider-Man movies, whereas this one, his suit is like practical, so you will see the folds. Still not as crisp as, say, an Aquaman movie, but in a scene like this where they're driving through the city, you've got the sun kind of beaming down from above, and you get those specular highlights off the cars and the reflections when Spidey's looking into the truck with Rhino. There's some parts where it seems like the highlights seem a little bit overblown. It could be the display, but I think they do seem a little hot. I mean, this scene here with Max and Spidey, the textures in his suit, you can see like all the little web textures in there and how the fabric glistens. Like the detail is that good. Still got grain in it, but it's still a very nice level of detail. I think if we were to get Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and mixed it with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, we would have like the perfect Spider-Man. Like he was maybe a little bit too cocky as Peter, whereas Tom Holland, more of an innocent kid. Now here's a nice scene for Black Levels when they're outside of the dim sum restaurant, the Chinese restaurant, very good black levels here. Like, I'm not seeing any black crush or anything like that. Nice detail, especially with the new highlights again, with the red lights, the red neon lights in the background, purples and reds, some oranges. You can see the fog back there. Not seeing anything being crushed, nothing being clipped as well. There are some close-ups that look very good, like you would think it was 4K crisp, but in this particular shot, it's actually very soft. So on Emma Stone's face, even Garfield's face, it's got that film softness to it, so you're not really getting a lot of detail. So in this particular scene, it looks very much like a standard Blu-ray, like a very good looking standard Blu-ray. So you're not seeing pores or wrinkles or anything like that. See, now here's a really close-up scene between Harry and his dad, and you would think the detail would be better in this, especially being so close up. But just like the scene of Emma and Andrew in the alleyway, these close-up shots, not as crispy or not as detailed as you might think they are. Actually very soft. Like right now we're looking at the hallway where Max is about to get electrocuted. And I like the neon colors, the blues pop really nice. I do feel that some of the highlights get clipped. I feel they do run a little bit hot, like the whites run a little bit hot. Now see, this looks cool with Electro and his electricity coming out the hands, looking like Palpatine in this scene. That looks nice. So I mean, if you want that HDR pop, this scene looks great when they're in Times Square. Let me throw in the 3D. I feel like I gotta see what the 3D looks like now. All right, so I think I got a fair assessment of what the 4K looks like. This 3D is so good looking on this movie. And the scene where Spidey catches Gwen out of the air, the 3D is so good in this movie. It feels like you can see the actual depth, every single layer, heading all the way down the clock tower. With his webs going across in front of your face, all these cogs are just layered and layered and layered. You do not get that in the 4K version, or the 2D version. There's zero crosstalk in this. When Gwen is falling down, he's like picking Gwen up with his web, and it feels like your screen goes all the way across the street. It's so deep. If you are not a fan of 3D and you watch this movie, I feel like you would have to come away impressed. Like if you watch this with Atmos and you can hear the metallic sounds behind your head and above you, the little echoes above your head. Now the web just snapped. Gwen is falling down. All the cogs are dropping. Oh, dude, Spidey flies towards the screen with his eyeball in front of your face. Dude, look at the layers, and there's like a dozen different layers here. Now you've got his web is shooting out of the screen, and you don't get that in 2D. This essentially looks like the 4K version in 3 dimensions though. The detail and everything looks exactly the same. Well, anyways, guys, as far as video quality is, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, not that different from a standard Blu-ray. I mean, you can see that I watched the 3D Blu-ray with dark glasses on, and as far as detail, resolution, clarity, really not a difference between the 3D version and the 4K version. And we're talking with like some sunglasses on, by the way. The biggest difference is going to be the HDR. I did feel that the HDR was cranked a bit high. Saturation levels are better on the 4K version over the 1080p version. I did think like the white highlights, the specular highlights seemed a bit overblown at times and overly hot. I did like the way it handled shadow detail. I did like that you could see very good shadow detail, if not the same as the standard 1080p Blu-ray. So I didn't see any detail being lost or crushed. But as far as if you were to put this into your set and had somebody walk in the room and you said, is this 4K or 1080p? They would probably just say it was probably a standard Blu-ray. Like it didn't look that different, or really any different whatsoever, except for saturation and brightness. So if I was gonna give it a rating, I would have to say for the 4K Blu-ray of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I would have to give it a 7.5. For the 3D version, this is one of the best 3D transfers I've seen. I haven't seen this movie in several years. The second I popped it in, from the opening credits to the last scene in the tower, or when you've got Spider-Man swinging through the city streets, I mean, there's such a level of depth and clarity, layer alignment, separation that you're not going to get on a 2D transfer. If you have a capable television display, projector, there's zero crosstalk in this. Maybe one of the best separation 3D transfers that I've seen. I would have to give this 3D transfer a 9.8. I did feel that this 3D transfer, although being free of ghosting and crosstalk, still didn't have the same level of brightness and contrast as something that you would get from Pacific Rim. I think Pacific Rim would be a 10 as far as 3D. This 3D transfer is still a little bit dim. Everything else was pretty much spot on. Like I said, no crosstalk, no ghosting. Detail just as good as the 4K version. The envelopment, the immersiveness of 3D of this transfer over the 4K handily beats it. Hands down, the best way to watch this movie would be the 3D version. And if you know how to remux the audio from your 4K disc over to the 3D version, even better. For audio, I'm gonna have to go with a 9.9. This is one of the most immersive mixes that I've heard. It's a true dynamically active mix, and it will surround you pretty much in every single direction. If you've got more than 11 speakers or 32 speakers, it will dynamically scale to every one of those channels. It's got an extremely wide, detailed soundstage, but the only thing that's really missing is that extra low-end, bottom-end grunt. So when things are exploding or something's crashing into something else, you're really kind of missing that little extra level of impact. I think if it would have had that, it would have been a perfect 10, but as it is, it's still one of the best audio mixes that I've heard, and definitely demo worthy. Anyways, guys, that's my thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 3D and on 4K Blu-ray. Have you guys seen it? What do you guys think? I know this is an older transfer. Do you think it holds up to the transfers nowadays in 2021 and 2022? Leave your comments down below and let us know your thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 on 4K, Blu-ray, and on 3D. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you again in the next video.